Throughout time, people across the world told each other tales of how they came to be, of heroes and monsters, romance and tragedy, death and rebirth. Mythology helped shape the ancient world, explaining the unexplainable. This is Mythology Unleashed. Fear. One of the most primal and most powerful emotions that a living creature could feel. Arising in situations where danger or threats to safety are perceived, fear can be experienced practically every day, ranging from slight worry to debilitating panic. Everyone is scared of something, whether they admit it or not, and everyone reacts to fear differently. Some by fleeing, some by fighting, and some succumbing to its nigh paralyzing effects. But what happens when you give the concept of fear a face? A being or creature that practically embodies fear itself, and exists solely to instill fear into the hearts of others. Mythology across the world has stories of such beings, beings that go by countless different names, but perhaps the most popular umbrella term is Boogeyman. With the name derived from the Middle English word bogey, meaning something frightful, the Boogeyman is a supernatural entity who lurks under beds, in closets, down dark stairways, in attics, basements, abandoned buildings, dark woods, and other foreboding places, stalking the unwary and striking fear into the hearts of all in its presence. The Boogeyman's physical description and characteristics vary from version to version, yet was always depicted as gruesome and frightening to behold. Some describe it as a snarling, ravenous beast with teeth ground sharp and eyes glowing red. Some say it has a proud set of horns, razor-sharp talons, and breath that reeks of decay. Some call it gigantic in size, or ghostly in nature, with the power to turn invisible to all but its prey, or even the power to assume the form of its victims' greatest fears. But its appearance and powers, whatever they may be, are only half of what make the entity so terrifying. When its victim was paralyzed with fear, helpless to fight back, the Boogeyman would then seize them and carry them off to parts unknown, perhaps to punish them for misdeeds, or perhaps to kill them or even eat them. Though there are plenty of stories of the Boogeyman attacking adults in horrifying ways, it is nigh universal a fact that it had a preference for targeting children, namely the mischievous, the disrespectful, and the disobedient. The Boogeyman's legendary preying on the young reveals the origins of the monster, having been created by adults as a means to keep unruly children in line, scaring them into behaving and doing as they are told. As children may be aware of what punishments their parents or other authority figures may deliver, but what a supernatural figure may do is much more ominous. And being so young and naive, they may be more likely to believe in such an evil, fantastical creature. What's more, as a child's imagination may create the image of a Boogeyman even more terrifying than is described by family and friends. A monster more tailored to their personal fears. The Boogeyman appears in cautionary tales all across the world, taking on different forms and methods of attack that vary depending on location and on cultural customs. Spanish folklore has El Hombre del Saco, the Sack Man, who appears as a hideous old man, gaunt to the point of emaciation, and would kidnap naughty children, stuffing them in his gunny sack to be sold to demons, or perhaps cook and eat them. Inuit mythology has the Kalupalik, aquatic humanoids that entice children over the ice towards the ocean with a humming noise, before spiriting them away to their underwater grottos to sleep forever. As well as the Amarok, a giant wolf that would prey upon anyone foolish enough to wander the open tundra and frozen forests alone after dark, be they child or foolhardy grown-up. Egyptian legend tells of Abu Rig Masluka, a boogeyman that was once a child who burned to death after disobeying his parents, and subsequently takes it out on misbehaving children, kidnapping them and roasting them alive. Haitian superstition tells of Metminwi, the Midnight Master, who would take the form of a tall and gangly man, who would then eat any who would wander the streets after dark. Japanese mythology has many monstrous yokai that instill fear into people, from the Kappa, who would haunt waterways and attack those who approach, to Jorogumo, a spider demon who would prey on young men. Nepalese legend has Gurumapa, a giant with sharp teeth that would kidnap disobedient children, but may return them in exchange for well-made food. Aboriginal Australian folklore tells of the Bunyip, an aquatic abomination whose vicious cries echo throughout the billabongs, and who would gladly tear apart any living creature that it finds, with a preference for human children out after dark. Germanic legend has the Earl King, or Earl Konig, a goblin-like monster who would kidnap children after promising them good fortune, fine clothes, and riches, but ultimately sending them to their doom. Scottish folklore tells of a shape-shifting water demon called the Kelpie, who would normally take the form of a stunning horse, luring the foolish to ride them before dragging them to the lake bottom, drowning them, and eating them. English folklore has countless boogeymen, or bogeymen, to frighten children and the superstitious, from ghost dogs such as Black Shuck, to water hags such as Jenny Greenteeth, to the menacing trickster called the Hobgoblin. Mexican lore has El Coco, described as a monster that would hide under children's beds and would snatch up those who stayed up past their bedtimes. Slavic mythology had Baba Yaga, a monstrous hag who lived deep in the dark forest in a hut on chicken legs, and who would fly about the countryside in a giant mortar bowl, looking for wayward children to enslave and eventually eat. These are but a select handful of mythology's boogeymen, and they are as different from each other as people's individual fears, yet are all linked by their ability to instill terror into the hearts of believers in monsters and spooks, weaponizing it against their intended prey. Yet as all fears may be overcome in time, so too does the boogeyman in all its incarnations possess weaknesses, such as bright light, magic words, or simply behaving in day-to-day life and staying out of dangerous places. All monsters are intended to be scary in some way or another, to varying degrees of success, but monsters under the boogeyman umbrella were created solely to instill fear in those who hear the legends, namely children who need to be scared into behaving properly. As there are countless things in the world to be afraid of, so too does the boogeyman take on countless varied forms, from ghostly fiends to hideous humanoids, to abhorrent demons straight out of primal nightmares. The boogeyman has gone on to become one of the most influential monsters of all time, with similar figures featuring in fantasy and horror fiction, and the term boogeyman applying to villains and monsters who brandish fear as a weapon in their hunts on those they would seek to harm and to destroy. Though the boogeyman is ultimately nothing more than a product of one's imagination, one must remember that few things are ever scarier than one's imagination. But one must also remember that while fear is a powerful opponent, it is not insurmountable. So, will you stand your ground, or will you succumb to your fears? The choice is yours.